This is day 58 of the Arukh HaShulchan OC. If you would like to sponsor a share or more of the Arukh HaShulchan OC, please be in contact with me directly. We are today doing Siman Lamed Beis Sif Ayin Gimel to Siman Lamed Beis Sif Ayin Tes. Ayin Gimel. V'da, you should know. Some people say that filu batim atzmam, even the batim themselves, says mikama oros the tofron, you can make of several pieces of leather and sew them together. The tefira chashiv chibur, because sewing is considered to be a form of connection. It makes it one block. So the Magen named that good on Sefer Truma. Because it came Masha Taisim Nachas, and he wrote this the inference from Taisim Nachas Lamed Beis. Because Parshas Yochel Adbik L'Shitas Rashi, who write that not only can you glue together the Batim, you can also glue together the Parshios in order to make the Shel Yad. Kosh came by Batim, goes on saying that the Batim can be sewed together. Because with the Afagav Domin Yerushalmi Tzunzuz Enichtam El Ba'or Echad. It says in the Yerushalmi that Tzunzuz must be written on one hide of leather, one piece strip of leather. It's Yerushalmi Megillah Paragraph Lachates. Zel Shlo Tafa Oro Zebzeh. That's when you didn't sew those skins together. Ayin Sham. Please, in the Chomar Koyes, we have to say that the Mashi Piresh Rashi B'Hatitura Shimu Or Echad. The Rashi says that the Torah, the passage in the back of the tefillin has to be from, the base of the tefillin has to be from one piece of leather, the totality of the titura. Zeu lo likuva, it's not an impediment. V'inkein nuchal amar, if that's the case, we could say the Gam Dasam Rambam lo likuva. That the opinion of the Rambam is also not an impediment. In other words, that you should have one, what he said in the previous piece was something about the Or Echad, right? There has to be Or Echad, which obviously we don't. As we demonstrated yesterday, we don't do. I mean, we do, but whatever. It used to not be so prevalent. So even that, though it's possible that the body itself could have different pieces of cloth on four sides. The custom is that because one piece of leather. I think it was my mistake. I said earlier that I've seen batim, not today, but saying earlier, batim where they were actually made of separate pieces of leather. I apologize. Obviously, that was wrong. The bias has to be one piece of leather. Rakatituro or biveat, so the base can be a separate piece of leather. And the Mahajim also make the titura, the base, from the same piece of leather as the bias, as opposed to the one we looked at yesterday. Mishabura says some people say that pieces of leather which are sewn or glued together are considered to be one piece of leather. And that is the minhag in armed countries, not like the Arukh HaShulchan. Nevertheless, it's appropriate to make it of Or Echad, right? I think maybe if they say anything, in other words, the cheap film, like we saw yesterday, even in Lithuania, were made, I guess probably specifically Lithuania, nowadays it's much rarer, were made of two pieces of hide. Nevertheless, the Mahadrin will make it of one piece of hide. Because it's proper and to make it from one piece of hide, because some people are machmir, hold that the strips which are sewn together or glued together are not considered to be one entity, and it's best to be machmir, to be yotze all the chashashos, all the issues. Ayin Dalet. Orach v'rochav habatim megovhan, the length, width, and height of those three dimensions of the batim. Ein l'zeh medina. You do not have any official minimum measurements. Miyagonim amru. Nevertheless, the Gonim have said, "Shalot yati tu aprusim mishtei atzvos." It should not be less than 2 fingers. Orach v'rochav, right? 2 fingers. The width and the width and the length. And so to the height. This is not so partial to me that the tiny film we looked at yesterday had that shear, but I think probably they did. So too it is clarified in the Shimusha Rabbah, which is one of the Rishonim Hilchos film. He says it's not an impediment. You bring a good piece of wood, train etzboy, I'll train etzboy, which is 2 etzbos on 2 etzbos. If it's larger, it's okay. But here, love a pasul. If it's less than 2 etzbos, it's not pasul. Ad kan lishono. Mr. Burrow brings that there's some who say that those which are less than a share of 1 etzba are pasul even b'diavad. Well, the one we looked at yesterday was tiny, but it certainly was not less than 1 etzba. I think it probably was less, now that we consider, I think it's probably less than 2 etzbos, but more than 1 etzba. V'chein kosu, I'll tell you back to Arukh HaShulchan, v'chein kosu tested reish very good Eruvin, b'shem ha-medrash. V'samach, it's interesting that there's a medrash like that. Samach ladavo, and an allusion to this, that tzitz Arukh v'shtei etzbos, that the tzitz, which the Kohen Gadol wore on his forehead, which said Kohen Kodesh L'Hashem, was 2 etzbos thick, wide. He's a reish sukkah, reish erchin. Mashik sas shir tefillin. I'm sorry, reish sukkah. Period. Reish erchin. Mashik sas shir tefillin v'shir tzitz. It sounds like tefillin is like the shir tzitz because it says Malkum Yesh that the Kohen Gadol could wear tefillin because Malkum Yesh Barosh Shnei tefillin. So therefore, it sounds like just that the tzitz was 2 etzbos, the tefillin was also 2 etzbos. We have long brackets here. Ayin beis Yosef Magen Avos Yikot Nuvav Shikosu the Chachamim Va'ab based in the sages of the city and the head and the chief rabbi of the city. Yaso shosh gavah mishosh etzbos. They should make it more than 3 of the shorosh, higher than 3 etzbos. They shura kol. Everybody should see their tefillin. V'tamid chacham, v'tamid bifnei rabo, a generic tamid chacham, and a talmid in front of his rebbe. Mirichin ktanos ketzba mechza. They put out tiny ones, etzba and a half on size. Mechasin tagas hamitz nefes, and they put it under their hats. In order that they should not look as if they are the equivalent of their rabbeim. Ayin sham. Let's say on the okay. It says we don't do this. Begam mashi tes Hashem the Yosem Arba Etzbos lo yaser rochav archa titura mishel rosh. It also seems there that you should not make the titura, the base of the shorosh, more than 4 by 4 etzbos. The Malkum tefillin ain't Yosem Arba Etzbos. Ayin sham. If it's learned out from tzitz and there's a place with 2 tefillin in the head, so it means 2 tefillin of 2 by 2 would mean that you should not make a tefillin greater than 4 by 4. If he's a yesh litzvoach, according to this, we should shout. Also shows in tefillin gedolim. People make the great, very large tefillin. She'ena munachim ha'makam tefillin shebarosh. It doesn't sit on the proper place for tefillin shebarosh. They're mekayim mitzvah tefillin, and they don't fulfill the mitzvah of tefillin. It's not clear to me there when the tzitz was, then where the tzitz was. Evidently, it was really high, not across the front, but really high up, because otherwise, how the tzitz and the tefillin clash. So the Mishnah Berurah writes that tefillin which are that size, the 4 by 4 etzbos, are not possibly kradin. If you put on, but if you put on one day tefillin which are etzba and a half in size, the minimum shear, and the next they put on tefillin which are 4 etzbos in size, then it's a contradiction. Tarate desasre. Whereas I guess those hold that 1.5 is good, hold 4 is no good. Those 4 hold more than 4 good, hold 1.5 is no good. So therefore, it would be contradictory. In any event, you should not make the tefillin so large that there's no way to put them on the proper place in the head. And Mishnah Berurah concludes that a person should have average tefillin, not less than a shear of 2 by 2 fingers, and not more than a shear of 4 by 4 fingers. Okay. Ayin hey. V'kvarnis boyer shetzarlios ribuah shabel. We already explained it has to be a square. Gam lamala, gam lamata b'titur, both above in the bias and below in the base. Zelashon, I was saying about the Shulchan Aruch. This is what the Shulchan Aruch says in Siflam. Test tefillin ben shel rosh ben shel yad. Halachah mashivsin shum murubaos. They should be square but tough run in their sewing, bach sonan, and their angles. They should be square, length and width of the same size. And you also have to make square the place where they sit. I'm not sure what that refers to. Not the titura. I guess it's the top of the titura and the bottom of the titura. Begam batim, and also the batim. Aval gova batim ain't like Peter. We don't care about the length of the batim. Imu yosem mirachman arkom. If it's more than the length and the width, arkom shal. V'av gav the cheshmer the am sav trei chumash balach sona. Ain't mechum legamre. Even though the square root of 2, which is the diagonal when you cut a square in half into triangles, is not precisely 1.4, which is what the Gemara gives. We know that it's not precise. Nevertheless, the Torah decreed Torah said this is good enough. Because you're there, Siman Lamed Sifu Gimel, Ayin Sham. V'dan, you should know she'afim nomer she'efshar something the other ma'asos ribuah mamish. And even though you might say that it's impossible for a human being to make something precisely square, nevertheless the Torah amra asay kfi mashi b'chol t'chol. It's something saying, do your best. The most, whatever you can make it, as close as you can get to precision, make it. V'zet kayim mitzvah. With this you fulfill the mitzvah. Chazal say this about the measurements of the Mizbeach and the Kelim Beis HaMikdash. Amar Torah Mida. Torah says a precise measurement. V'zel Lashon HaGemara. It says Rachmana Amar Avid. The Torah says do it. The extent to which you can possibly do it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is okay with that. Okay, so obviously you don't have to sit with pincers and figure out if the precision is exact. And this follows, obviously, the general law with all halachas in Torah that we go according to what it looks like. And if it looks square, that's called square. Ayin Vav. V'nimtza shatfilin tzrichim b'yos murubos l'mala u'lamata b'titura b'tofra. So the tefillin have to be square on top and on bottom, in the base and in the sewings. K'lomar shleim shel chut tefillah yosim midai. That you should not not stretch, the opposite of stretch. You shouldn't stretch the sinew with which you sew it too much, that it's going to crimp and ruin the square. If you made them square to begin with, and then the square got ruined, some say you have to square them again. Klomar, meaning, God the Betzitzis Amrim Sifyud Aleph, the Siman Yud Aleph, Shem Nitchu Chutei Erev. We saw that by tzitzis, I'm sorry, that if the strings of the threads of the garment got severed to the point that there isn't a thumb width left in the corner, that it's kosher, right? It's still left. It's still kosher. Zem ibnei but tzitzis ikpida Torah rak b'shas asiyah. It's because tzitzis Torah only was makbid at the time you make it. If you see basula and tzitzis, make the tzitzis properly. Ayin sham. I brought tefillin aloch l'moshe b'sinai. But the squareness of the tefillin is aloch l'moshe b'sinai. V'chol shosh tzrichim lios aloch l'moshe b'sinai. I was like, chol shosh tzrichim lios kacha. Therefore, they have to be that way all the time. L'chatchila yahader b'sharosh yukol batim shavim. So l'chatchila you should do it that in the sharosh, all the batim of the sharosh, all 4 chambers should be equivalent. Ach ein zelikuva, but that's not an impediment. I guess they were not precisely aligned. Ayin zayin mani kol what's called where the square is ruined, no longer valid. Nearly kagoshis kavtzas, where they got compressed a little bit, but orechel brochav in length or width, or nechsar ktsas, or it's missing something. Chadayma. Yeshut tzilomar. Some people say the chap tzavas niskaku, when the corners are ruined. Chatze b'chidudan. In other words, that the corners are which are the sharp angles on the 4 corners of the bodies get ruined. And they look like a Mexican, so they look rounded at the close corners. That's called that the square has been ruined and it's puzzled. Of course, that's why by most modern tefillin shaliad, they come with a plastic covering to put it between your tefillin and your sleeve in order that it shouldn't get rubbed down. But Arukh HaShulchan says, I don't think we have to, it's so stringent. First of all, the square is not ruined in this way. Because he says that it's still, since the sharpness of the corner has been eroded in all directions equally, it's still square. V'im tamash zol tefillin agulim v'lo meruboim. If you're going to close round tefillin, they're not square tefillin. So bada yoser tema. Right? This is even more astonishing. Shat tefillin heim meruboim can be koydem. Because the tefillin seemed to be just square as they were previously. Datim chiduli k'tzavas enim chudayin karoi. If the angles are not sharp, it's properly sharp, and they have a shem meruba, it does not consider to be a square or a cube. B'tmiyah, it's astonishing. Dati zeu shamru chazal b'ribua v'achsono. That's what Chazal meant to say when they said the square and its angle. Moshe's barer v'menachos v'kasha. Pshita kem sh'asim merubam himeliach so karoi. Finally, we come to this mysterious phrase, and the alachson has to be properly straight. Obviously, the alachson is straight. If it's a square, then it's alachson. Its angle is obviously straight. Rashi says it means that the length shouldn't be more than the width. The angle should be square. Ad shelem arba zavio shabos till you have 4 equal angles. Kavanasom mebueres. So it's clear what he's saying. The ikar da zavios yoshavos. The main thing is that the angles should be, the corners should be equal. Even if the sharpness of the corners has become somewhat blunted, what difference does it make? Nevertheless, the angles are equal. The Torah is not giving the malachim that they should be so meticulous in preserving a precise, sharp corner. And naturally, it will get blunted in the corners over time. There are some sofrim who are really expert who can make batim which never get ruined. Most cannot do this. And also those batim makers who can make those super batim, they take lots of money for their batim, which not every person can attain. Sof already see, I also said Gam Bohem, Shemesha Cha'es Miskaplima, even those super duper batim, they also get rounded a little bit. Because it has to be that way. If I say the Khalil Omar Shem Psul, we cannot say that it's possible. Does not come with undue demands to his creatures. The Masham Berchoras Le'inyan Meruba, and that would just say that's the same Berchoras in terms of the square. Avi Kolechi the Matzis, do as much as you can. Moshe Sabnu B'Sif Hey, like the word Sif Hey, but also Mechampsim Chumas Yiseros Ein Das Chachamim Nocho Mehem. Those who look for additional Chumas, Chachamim don't like them. Powerful statement. So the halachsonon, which he's talking about, I think means that even according to Arukh HaShulchan, it means that as long as the angle is, as long as the angles are straight, even the top of the house is, the bias is curved a little bit, that's not a problem. As long as the angle from corner to corner is straight, the roundedness doesn't make a difference. So Meruka, it's coming to say Meruba. Hein, they have to be meruba, but how does it define? By making sure the angle is straight and it doesn't become like a trapezoid or quadrilateral of some other shape. I think that's what he's learning it. The Mishnah Berurah writes that Niskalka Ribuan means that the sharpness of the angles has become totally destroyed, so it becomes round. Not sure exactly what it means. But Allah says if there is something like a chunk missing, like the size of which can catch the fingernail as going across, kind of like the shkita knife. Even if it's made in the corner of the angle of the corner, that doesn't lose the shem ribua. But if the ribua gets crushed more than that which stops the fingernail, that's called kilkul aribua, and the Mishnah Berurah ends that with a tzorech iyum. It's not 100% sure about that, evidently. Ayin ches. Charit sheben bayis l'bayis. the indentation between each of the chambers. Shorosh, it's got to reach the bottom. Had a malachim shutafim to tour the place where they it's the base of the tefillin is sewn. But if it doesn't get to the bottom, it's still kosher. The dafka sharitz nikar l'kol is only when the indentation is recognizable to everybody. So the four chambers will be obvious to everybody. If not, it is possible. Each and every chamber has to be, this is a chiddush to me, has to be freestanding. They shouldn't be so glued together that it's not easy to pull them apart. Okay, let's see. Here's our cheapo tefillin from yesterday. Remember the one I told you? I'm not even sure if it's two etzbos. By two etzbos? I don't think it is. Two etzbos. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. No, a little bit less than two etzbos. And that side. In any event, these are the four chambers. They are separated inside until the bottom. Let's see if we can separate them on top easily. Certainly not with a hand. Certainly not with a hand. Trying. Fingers can't do it. Let's see if we take a screwdriver, how easy it is to do. Actually, this is not a flathead. Don't know if I have a flathead handy. Let's try then with this one, even though it's not a flathead. Can't get it in. Can't push it in. Trying. You know, there's this famous picture of that rabbi in the Holocaust with his tefillin sharosh split on top. So this halacha unfortunately brings that picture to mind. I'm trying here to use this even sharp, this pointy implement to get it in between, and I cannot get in between. So at least here in this cheapo film, I cannot get it. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, so if you can't get part of race, you can't get part of race or bias. It's one bias. We have to rebuke the sofrim who glue the batim to each other. Mishua writes if they glue the batim to each other by glue, but on top they make simonim like as if there's an indentation. It's not clear if it's kosher even b'diavad, and you see the Mishua does speak about how it's proper to glue it together. Okay. Don't say that if they're not fully pressed together and glued together, the square has been destroyed. And okay, it's not true. Interesting. The squares are considered as what it would be if they were actually next to each other, even if they're pulled apart a little bit. It's not. There's no connection between the connection between the batim and the square. If the intention is not recognizable, it's possible. It's got to be a distinction between bias and bias. So the way I always look at these cheapo tefillin is that actually there is no charitz which goes all the way through. I think there probably is. I can't tell. Let's see, maybe if we push it through again. We did yesterday. I can't tell. can't tell. But, you know, maybe it looks to me like there is no... It's not the type of charitz which go all the way through. But, again, I can't tell you for sure. Okay, be as it may. Achim v'Shramah should also have the bias ayin sham. It's got to be distinguished between the batim. Ayin test. B'shachus batim lo matzia b'gemara. If you look at this tefillin, you can see that the black is coming off here in a way you don't normally see in tefillin which are still in use. I'm not sure you can see that. I'm sure you're close enough to it, but the tefillin is turning yellowish on here in the sharosh and on this side too. I don't know if you can see it with enough clarity, but it's... Oh, yeah, there's a big yellow patch right there, right? That's obvious. Okay. Rak Ritzuas Omer Alocha Moshe Misinai Shu Shkoros. Only the Ritzuas that say Alocha Moshe Misinai, they have to be black. Batim Lo Matzina, we haven't found the Batim, didn't find the Batim. Chen Katzaram Misham Din Yudal Shaktzitza Yichol Yos Yiruka Levana. The bias could be green or white. And we come because of Shinu Litfilin. He said that Shenoi, not Shinui. Shenoi, it's appropriate for tefillin, and it's a Hidr mitzvah, obviously. L'shia kol shachar, ha'ktzitza or tzukula, both that bias and the ritzua. Ayin sham. Zesh kaz rabbeinu beis Yosef si mem zel sharo. Or a batim mitzvah lasos on shachar. So mitzvah, it's appropriate, a good thing to make them black. Akal shano. Kavanaso mitzvah, what is the mitzvah he is referring to? The Zek Keli Van Veu, the mitzvah of Noah, the mitzvah of adorning mitzvahs. The mitzvah of Lochova, it's a good thing, not an obligation. It's a simple minhag, the universal minhag, to make them black. So if they got white a little bit over time, like ours did, I just showed you. It's not a problem. So if there's a sofa in your place, give it to him to blacken. It's not an impediment for the mitzvah. The Shibur writes that some poskim hold that the blackening of the batim is halacha moshe b'sinai like the ritzuos, and therefore it wouldn't be an impediment. So therefore, unless it's not possible at all to get them blackened, you should get them blackened. There's some sofrim who put on a coating of tiach, which I assume is like a shellac, in order to so they should be shiny. You should rebuke those suffering. If there's any substance to the shellac. And the greats of the generations have complained about that. And evidently was not prevalent anymore at the time of the Arukh HaShulchan. I don't think this one is shellac either. The Mishnah Berurah says that the question whether the shellac can be peeled off as is, and then it looks like black paper, which is possible, or as opposed to darkening it with gall nuts, which you can't peel off, which you then don't have to be machmir b'diavad. But I guess both of them are not actually dyes, but shellacking on them. Anyway, he does be down here brackets. Then Tosh Shabbos and Word is filled by Shachos and Medina. Ayin Sham, Ayin Bach. There is an opinion that the black of, as the Shibur says, that the black of the batim also is a strict halacha.